thank you so much for joining us on Politics Wrap. So in the spirit of Women's Month, you know by now that we've actually featured a number of women in politics and continue to do so until the end of this month. And today I'm joined by a person who's no stranger, Ayanda Ali, who's a BUSA member in the Gauteng legislature, journalist and government communicator, and now a politician. And via our video link, we are joined by Mabato Mokoena, who's a member of parliament of the MK party. She also serves in the NCOP committees of agriculture, land reform and minerals, select committees of finance and of appropriations. Thank you so much for joining us on SABC News.
Thank you. Hi to you and your viewers.
Cool. I think, Ayana, let me just start with you because you're in studio. Before we get into our conversation of women in politics, I think your immediate reaction to Dada Morero being elected the mayor of Johannesburg.
Look, we as Build One South Africa have watched the developments in the city of Johannesburg with a great caution because we don't want to be too optimistic, I should say. We were calling for a change, especially with regards to that surcharge in prepaid electricity, and we do hope that Dada will pay careful attention to that. I think if he can make sure that he reduces or even rescinds that decision of the surcharge, then we will be very happy. But more than that, if he can make sure that there's increased consultation going forward with regard to any of the tariff increases, and most importantly, make sure that that indigent registry is dealt with, then I think we'll be smiling all the way to the polls come 2026 for us. But I think that's a big ask, and we do hope that he'll be equal to the task. Cautious optimism from Build One South Africa.
Okay, Babato, you heard there from Ayanda, cautious optimism. Dada Morero is now elected as the mayor of the city of Johannesburg. Your reaction, and personally, maybe your thoughts on Floyd Shivambu joining the MK party and Zanele Manyi as well.
Okay, well, congratulations to him for being elected. But on my side, I would say for Women's Month, it's actually quite a disappointment that yet another man was appointed or elected as a mayor. Where are the women of the party? Surely we have enough women at this day and age who can take up and participate effectively as leaders in the municipality. And it's very odd that, we have parties like the DA who have had a black woman in power before. In Ekurhuleni, I remember we had a black woman mayor. And the question is, in 2024, where is black empowerment in terms of women being in leadership positions? That's how I feel. And then in terms of Mr. Floyd Shivambu entering or joining us in the Mkhonto weSizwe party, it's basically nothing new. He was already part of the Progressive Caucus, as you know, and obviously what now it gives them is a better platform for them to engage further in our mission as the leaders and the fighters of democracy, as leaders and fighters in our Progressive Caucus. I think it just gives them a better platform because we are the official opposition in government currently.
Okay. Ayanda, you heard what Mabato had to say, questioning where are women in leadership positions. I want to bring you to this conversation of barriers to women's participation in political leadership. And I was just reminded of a conference that I went to, a dialogue rather, of the IEC and gender parity, right? And there's this phenomenon called voter bias. For those who don't know, this is a practice that is prevalent in communities with more traditional gender role attitudes, whereby male political leaders are preferred over women. How do we change this attitude of voter bias?
Firstly, I think it's important that we acknowledge it exists because it's a subconscious bias, right? People don't think it's there, but it actually is there. And Mabato can attest to this as well. Before you go into any interview, you must check your hair, check your makeup, check your outfit, check that you're presentable as a woman before you can even look at the content of what you're going to say, because you're judged on all of the above, right? So we enter any platform on a deficit. You are looked for your pitch, your tone. She's too angry, she's too masculine, oh, she's too soft, she's feminine. women. Those are things that men don't have to deal with, right? A man can be soft-spoken and still be seen as powerful. A woman is soft-spoken, oh no, she's soft, she's weak. A woman is aggressive and assertive, oh no, this one is trying to be a man, etc. So you go into any platform having to think a million times about what it is that you're bringing to the table, how you should portray yourself so that you can be acceptable. And I'm not even speaking about the social norms of having to appear in any platform. I mean, Mabata will tell you that we have to deal with bedtime, bath time, dinner time, and making sure homework is done, and all sorts of things that men don't necessarily have to deal with on these platforms. So when you're coming in a political space, by the time you arrive there, you have already fought battles and won battles that men don't even have to think about. So for me, I feel like you should be judged on that basis of how much more credible could this leader be, because she's had to deal with all these societal norms and still show up and still be effective where she is. So I think that should place us in higher value as women. But unfortunately, they look at us and they say that someone might be put off because of the color that you're wearing, you know. So I think it is something that's important for us to look at, but to first acknowledge that it exists is where we start.
Mabata, what battles have you had to fight, specifically in Parliament? I assume you're a new member of Parliament. What battles against patriarchy within and outside of the MK party?
Well, I've been very fortunate to be in the Mkhonto Wesizwe Party. First, it's run by a phenomenal man. I mean, President Jacob Zuma has always been an advocate of female empowerment. I mean, you could see it from the time that he came in as a president, how many women leaders we had and women ministers we had and deputy ministers we had at the time. So basically, it's just a continuation of that. I've never had to feel like I'm lesser than. And basically, as she was saying, I can really advocate for everything she was saying, because I think the biggest challenge for women is that our biggest enemies are women. You know, there's so much woman-to-woman hate, and it's not necessarily coming from the male side. It's literally coming from the female side, where you hear a woman saying, "I'd rather have a male boss than have a female boss because women think they're better than that." I think there's a lot of hurdles we need to jump over before we can actually win this race. However, education is the best solution. Women are now better educated. And for that, I believe that the women that are coming back now, or are future women coming, I mean, I'm talking about the likes of my daughter who's 16 years now, you know, I can see the future becoming better for women and having more confidence in women leadership as time goes on.
Okay. Ayanda, Mabata talks about something very important, woman-to-woman hate. We call it PhD, pull-her-down syndrome. Is it true? Is it something that's, you know, prominent or relevant actually amongst us as women?
I think it was Chimamanda who says we teach girls to shrink themselves, to make themselves smaller. She goes on to say something that's very important, that we teach girls to compete, but not for academic achievement or even socioeconomic growth, but for the attention of men, right? So we teach women to fight so that they can be perceived as beautiful or perceived as accomplished by what? By men. So we fight one another so that we can advance as far as the male gaze is concerned. And I think it is a thing. Yeah, it is a thing that we learn and we have to unlearn as you get older, because by my candle being lit and shining, it doesn't take away from the light that you exude, right? If anything, it just enhances it and it makes the room even more brighter. So I do think those are things that we have to unlearn, right? And the competition that we need to channel ourselves toward is for the betterment of others, and not necessarily to compete on I can do this, or I can be seen as this, or they must see me as the beautiful one or the smart one, etc. But we must compete to say, I want to be the best version of myself. And if I'm the best version of myself over and above the political spectrum, then I will be able to light up the room, and we can all light up the room with what we exude. So I do think it's a thing. I also think it's so important that we are not being used by men, right, to push a particular agenda, because that also happens where you put the woman as a face and you say, oh look, we've got X amount of women in parliament, yay, so progressive. We have X amount of women in cabinet, yay, so progressive. But we know that there are just figureheads who are there, who have the form of leadership but lack the power and lack the authority to make real decisions. So I think that's something that we should be focused more on, as opposed to competing with one another or having the pull her her Down syndrome.
Definitely. Mabato, when you look at the socioeconomic barriers that women face, issues of poverty, of unemployment, do you honestly think that there's a direct link between the social and economic status of women in society and their participation in political institutions?
I'll both say yes and no. It just depends on what areas are open for you as a woman and taking advantage of those as you go. I think the most important thing is championing principles of equality and representation for women. I mean, if you are in a leadership position already, open doors and opportunities for women to enter the space, open up rooms for space, involve more women, employ more women in positions of leadership as a woman. And then you will be the driver of making sure that the socioeconomic challenges that are minimized. I know only women can make the world a better place, and it's only women that can promote other women into better leadership positions.
Okay. Ayanda, Mabato speaks about equality for women, and let's just look at the gender quota of women in politics. You know, the ANC is 50-50. The DA subscribes to the notion of equal opportunity, so gender and race is nothing to them. You get positions by merit. In terms of Bosa, how does it work in your political party?
I think we see people as human beings first and foremost, and so your gender, as important as it is not a barrier for us. I mean, we have Nobuntu Hlazo Webster, who's the deputy leader of Build One South Africa, co-founder of Bosa with Musi Maimani, who, by the way, is the person that recruited me and encouraged me to come join the party. So that already dispels the myth of all women are competing and pulling each other down. So the fact that she is a woman in such a powerful position, commanding power and authority over and above men even in the party regionally, already tells you that we value her contribution, and she's not just a quota or a box ticking exercise to say, okay, women this side ningai kini 15 nina matota ningai. Now it's important to have representation, and it's important to have those numbers reflected, but more than that, it's important to have the authority and the power that comes with the position. And you can see that here in the political party that we have all of that, and I think that's absolutely crucial, because sometimes you can be drawn to ticking the box, and it's important to have the numbers, don't get me wrong, but more than just having the numbers, you must be able to have the authority that the position comes with. So when she then puts in place a position or policy direction, the men in the party must be able to say, you know what, we concede and we think you're correct when it comes to that. And I think that's important. So not just the numbers, but also the power, the authority that comes with the position is very important, and we have that thankfully at Build One South Africa.
And Mabato, do you have that in Umkhonto weSizwe? What is the quota like within the party?
Well, in general terms, addressing the issue of 50-50 gender equality has always been a challenge, not only in our party, but in the political landscape altogether. I believe that the enemy of true equality isn't just the lack maybe of policies, but a lack of actually commitment in implementing what we say we'll do. As women, in as much as we say we want space and we want to consume the space, we still have to be as qualified as the men are. So we have to take up space. We have to enter those boardrooms, having the knowledge, the know-how, the skills, and as your guest has said, actual authority and power to actually do the job. So it's no use saying, because I'm a female, I should be a chief whip. I should have the authority, the power, the know-how, the experience, as well as the qualification to do the job and get it done so that we can then matter in the boardroom.
Okay, ladies, as we wrap up this interview, we were covering a study by the Commission for Gender Equality, and it found that only 13% of farms and agricultural land, compared to 71%, actually 71% owned by men on communal land. Is this not worrying as a woman that we only own 13% of the land, and you have a vast majority of men who own 71%? Mabato?
Sure. Yes, let's just start by saying, historically, who were the real farmers? Who are the people, when it comes to gender, who will go to the back garden and actually grow plants and food for families? It has always been the woman. So it is still sad indeed that at this day and age in 2024, we are still struggling to get equity in terms of land distribution in South Africa. And it's a call that we as Mkhonto weSizwe have been driving, will continue to drive as part of the Progressive Caucus. That is our main agenda, to make sure that the land does come back to its rightful owners, and that not only does it come back, but that it's used effectively to grow the economy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Ayanda, your parting shots?
Yeah, I think more than just the agricultural space, I think women in general, if we are going to strive to achieve everything that we are destined to achieve, we have to either change the norms of society, or we have to create avenues where you can still become ambitious and fulfill your duties at home. I'll use a classic example. If you're trying to climb the corporate ladder, you'll soon learn very quickly that it's difficult for you as a woman to be a mom, to be a wife, and to climb the corporate ladder. But if we then have society that says in your jobs, have a daycare, so that if you have a child, for the first 3 to 5 years of your child's life, you drop them off downstairs on the first floor where there's a creche, and then you can still work until 5, 6 o'clock, etc., and not have to worry, because, oh, there's the school run, etc. That is a society that's then saying we're supporting women empowerment. Same thing with politics. I mean, we're usually boots on the ground on constituency day, etc. If there's a timetable and a schedule that understands that this woman, they need a gap between this time and that time so she can fulfill her societal roles, then that's a society, a community that's saying we want you to be progressive and to advance and to achieve, but we're also mindful of this role for you. So we can't have it both ways. It's either society is going to open up and change, and businesses and work environments will accommodate our growth, or we're then going to say men and women, you go and both fulfill the domestic chores. We can't have it both ways. If you're saying women can be all they want to be, they can be farmers, they can be all those things, then start to create environments that are conducive. If I'm going to farm agricultural land, make sure that I'm able to still be a wife, to be a mother, to be everything that I'm supposed to be in society, because this agricultural space will then accommodate that. If we're saying we want more women in politics and they must still fulfill their societal roles, then create a space for me to be able to thrive in parliament, at the legislature, in constituencies and communities. So I think we need to start reflecting as a society the kind of women that we want, and not just say women can be anything and everything they want to be, and yet it's still a very much male-dominated framework or structure that they are supposed to thrive in as women. So I think, yeah, a lot of introspection and reflection we need to do as a society.
Ladies, thank you so much for your wonderful insights. Of course, that was Mabato Mokoena, a member of Parliament of the MK Party. She's also in the NCOP. And of course, Ayanda Ali, a Busa member of the Gauteng legislature. Thank you so much for your time. And this is all we have for you on the Politics Wrap. Of course, I am back on Monday.